I'm so happy and super excited to have Jonathan Robinson today in the Conscious Evolution Summit. Jonathan, it's morning for you in the States. For me, it's already almost evening in Germany. And I'm so happy that you said yes to my invitation.
Great to be here. I'm looking forward to this.
Same. And I just want to read a few words about you. Jonathan Robinson is a psychotherapist, best-selling author of 14 books, and the co-host of the podcast Awareness Explorers. His focus is providing people with practical methods for glimpsing awakened consciousness that take under 2 minutes to do. How great is that? I'm really looking forward to experience them. But before we go into the practice, Jonathan, I would like to know what attracted you to say yes to this invitation? So what is your relationship to consciousness work, and what makes your heart shine when you come into a conversation like that?
Well, of course, I've been in a lot of these conversations, and a lot of your listeners have been part of those conversations. I see that I have a unique contribution that I think is important to make in a couple ways. One is I like to focus on methods that take under 2 minutes to do, because a lot of people know how to meditate or find peace where they separate themselves from life. But I like to give people methods where they can use them, like I'm using a method right now, and help to connect to the awareness, the consciousness that we are all a part of. So my favorite methods are methods that take under 5 seconds to do. And I know about 40 of those methods.
Mhm.
So I think that's a missing ingredient to some of these summits. So I like to put in my 2 cents worth, like how do you integrate consciousness while doing email? Because I don't know about you, but most of my life is email, driving, talking. It's not meditating. I meditate an hour a day, but most of our lives are doing things, and I still want to be plugged in to the universe, so to speak. So that's one aspect of what lights me up. The other is to be aware of what it gets in the way of us being consciously present in a moment. And I think there's not enough about that conversation of looking at conditioning and obstacles and being willing to see that we need to grow up. You know, we don't just need to wake up in Ken Wilber's terminology, we need to grow up. And I was lucky in that I lived in a spiritual community for 26 years in which we gave each other a lot of feedback that way. And that was very helpful.
And what would you say, why is it so important to be in this unique states of consciousness? What is your experience when you look in your life before you were really aware of awakened states of consciousness, and now, and with your background, your experience in living in a community for so long and talking to so many great, influential, inspiring, deep spiritual teachers, what is the value of that?
Well, as an individual ego, we're all living in a state where we're focused on what can I get, what can I, it's about me, it's about what I want, my opinions. When I let go of some of that and enter into a higher state of consciousness, then it's about kind of what's needed. In fact, that's my mantra. What's needed here? You know, stepping out of my story, my thoughts, my opinions, and being present. Okay, what does this person need? What's needed in this situation? And when I do that, I feel like I'm a vehicle for, you could call it God or consciousness or a higher force. And I think as more people tap into that experience of letting go of individual egoistic needs and just being present to the love and wisdom that can flow through us when we tap into something higher, then the world's going to be a better place. And I certainly know what the moments that I'm doing that, I'm a better person.
Mhm. So what I really hear, Jonathan, is that first of all, it supports you in detaching from your egocentric perspective and really connects you to a field where you said it's you experience as love flowing in this field and also receiving guidance from it. And is there, or in your unique ways, when you kind of imagine yourself in that state, how would you describe it? How does your system register when you are tapped into that awakened state of consciousness?
Uh-huh. It's a great question. I like asking that question. As you know, I interview people and I have a podcast where I interview folks, and I'm always asking them that question. And people usually describe it pretty similarly. I mean, you could use terms like peace and love and compassion, but a term I like to use is I feel like I'm plugged in. Like imagine a plug. Most of us feel we don't have a plug. We're not plugged into the wall. And we often feel like we're just kind of dangling alone in the universe. But when I tap into, say, awareness or consciousness in a very conscious way, I feel like I'm like plugged into the universe, and the energy that keeps it all alive is keeping me alive. And it feels very blissful to me. Sometimes it's very strong and sometimes it's in the background. But I also feel like that since I'm plugged into the universe, my actions that flow out of that are more harmonious. I've been very blessed that I've been on Oprah a lot and I've had some best-selling books, and people ask me, how did that happen? And I always say, basically, I plugged in consciously to the universe and I asked for guidance. And the guidance that I got led to these things happening, which is a lot more fun than the brute force. I'm going to hire a PR person and push it until I get there. I've done that too. And that, we all know how that feels.
Mhm. Wow, so what I hear is that when you are plugged into that field, kind of there is also you said it's harmonious, and then also resources seem to find together which are needed to birth something or to provide something for the common good, maybe, or for some people which are really uh, benefiting for that. Would you say,
Yeah.
you agree that? Yeah.
And you get like synchronous moments or miraculous moments more often. And, most people have had that once or twice or maybe more during their life. And so they know what it's like, but they don't necessarily know how to get back to it more frequently. And I think as more of us people find ways to listen and act from that guidance, that change is going to happen. Right now there's a lot of protests going on and everybody is stirred up. And I think that's great. The world needs a change. But if you act from a low state of consciousness, good things tend not to happen. What the world needs now is more love. It doesn't need more angry people necessarily.
Mhm. And would you say, Jonathan, in your experience, because I love Ken Wilber's work and I read his book since 30 years. And I mean, he really shares distinguished methods for waking up and also distinguished methods for cleaning up or growing up, you
Yeah.
mentioned. But you also mentioned that it kind of also goes hand in hand together. So maybe you can share a bit your perspective on those two, let's say, development paths for us humans, this waking up and growing up, how you see it, how is it that different? And maybe share what you found out, what helps in this or that, and how, in your experience, it also is kind of connected.
You ask great questions, by the way. I don't always get great questions, so thank you. um, now, yeah, that's a big area. Well, something that has surprised me, because I lived in a community where the waking up and growing up were seen as two sides of the same coin. So I always thought that they were totally connected. And then I left that community about 5 years ago and saw that it wasn't necessarily connected. You know, you could do a lot of, like, I'm a psychotherapist, you could do a lot of psychology and therapy and kind of be a mature human being and not be awakened at all. You don't even know what awakening is. But you're a good person, you're open, you're good in relationships, people like you, you're skillful. So I think growing up can be through therapy or knowing yourself and having friends that can tell you when you're doing something off. So something I do with all my friends is I say this sentence, and if you want to grow up, this is a great sentence to ask your friends, to say, and I'm giving you this invitation, Puria. If there's ever something that you see I'm doing that looks like it's hurtful or inharmonious, or you think I'm not aware of, I would really appreciate if you told me about it, because I can't see myself as clearly as you see me. So if that's going on with anything, I give you 100% permission to tell me. And you know, I have friends that will do that. And sometimes it's hard to hear, but it has led to me at least being aware of these blind spots in me so that I am not acting out of those things. And that has led to some growing up. That's like free therapy. So
Absolutely.
that's really great.
I mean, I really very much agree in that. I also lived for not as long as you, but for almost 6 years in a community. And I always said this was kind of a time for reality check. Because when
Yeah.
you are in your cave, on your meditation cushion, on your own, and just surrounded by people you like, and you then go, you can keep a kind of a self-image which looks maybe quite mature and advanced and awake. But when you are in day-to-day living with so many mirrors, and they kind of help you to show your unconscious sides and your shadow parts, you would say, then you can really see, all right, maybe my self-image isn't like that. But also, when we are in that topic, Jonathan, I would like to know, because there are some people say that living in a community can also kind of distract you from this deepening process of awakening, because it can be that you are often spending so many time just in relational conflicts or processes and ego triggering, that there is almost no space, because you can be so activated in a way, and so much in your head and in your expectations and in your stories, that you miss the gaps and the times where you can kind of deepen your consciousness work. So as someone who was there for such a long time, how would you respond to that?
I totally agree. You know, that different environments have different advantages and disadvantages. You know, if you live on your own, you might be able to go deep within, but then you lose, you know, what you gain from relationship. And if you're in relationship, you might lose what you gain from just being within and, you know, your creator. So I was blessed in that my teacher basically told me to leave. You know, he said, okay, you've done enough of this, now do something else. And I feel very lucky that he was willing to do that. But yeah, you know, each environment feeds a different part of us. So I encourage people to sometimes be in an environment that challenges them with a bunch of feedback, and sometimes to be on the mountain and in retreat. This teacher would sometimes put people on the hot seat like once a week, and he would tell them all the things he saw that was kind of wrong with them. And the person would always say, no, that's not true. That's a misunderstanding. And then he would say, well, if you think Bob is really like that, raise your hand. And we'd raise their hand because we were all living together. We knew about Bob. And he was always very accurate, except when he was talking about me. Whenever he was talking about me, everything he said seemed totally inaccurate. And then he'd say, if you think Jonathan is really like how I just said, raise your hand. Everybody would raise their hand. And I realized, oh my God, I don't know myself. It really occurred to me, like, I didn't know that I was doing all these things. So that type of environment can be very helpful for a period of time to grow that sense of self-awareness.
I really like that also, that it's kind of, we find, you could say, if you simplify it, you find different kinds of food in different environments, and they help you in different with different topics.
Yeah.
And when
But the second part of that conversation that you asked was, so that's growing up. Now, waking up does not necessarily give you growing up. I interview, just like you do, a lot of people who are very awake, but some of them can't drive a car, or some of them can't have a relationship, or they're terrible with money. And or they might be acting out some blind spot that they're not aware of, sexually or power-wise. So, but waking up is really important because you do want to tap into the peace and love within. And the techniques that lead to waking up and the techniques that lead to growing up are often very different. And so, once again, being able to balance those two sides, making sure that when they get too far out of balance, it doesn't seem good. So I'm always thinking, do I need to focus more on waking up or growing up now? And try to bring both along kind of steadily.
Yeah, thank you for that answer. It's really great. And I just have this impulse to also bring the fourth pillar into the conversation, which is showing up, because in my case, I kind of did a lot of work in waking up. Waking up was not really work for me. It happened kind of very naturally, spontaneously, and I just followed my inner curiosity. Growing up was a lot initiated in the community, and then with different support, like therapists, healer, coaches, and partner and family and kids and all of that, and cleaning up as well. But then came a period in my life where I noticed there is something not really flowing. It felt a bit like a lake, but not really. Flow was coming in, but not really going out. And then I did this Superhuman Operating System course with Ken Wilber, and it was so clear. Showing up is missing. You need to now show up. Don't be so afraid. Don't be afraid to be criticized, to maybe when you share something, not everybody likes it, and so on. And then I started the Summit series, and I just wonder what you see, because my sense is, when we really would like to co-create a world where many of us sense in our hearts that the world we are right now operating is kind of a very artificial thing and not really matching what we sense, what is possible. And my sense is showing up is really very important. So I would like to hear from you how you, basically your perspective on that.
Yeah. Different people have what I call different weak legs. We all have some weak leg, For one person, it's showing up. For another person, it's waking up. For another person, it's growing up. And it can change over time. So I think the most important spiritual development question a person can ask is, what is my current weak leg and how can I work on it? Now, my weak leg was never about showing up. Showing up was easy for me. My weak leg was more about waking up. And so I would do the retreats, or I would go to the teachers, which was always like really hard. Um, but if you know yourself, you know what your weak leg is, and you're willing to then work on it, just like you did. You saw like, well, you know, I'm not really out there that much. So when you face fear, or when you face a little bit of discomfort, you're growing. And you know, if you're like in the ocean on a surfboard and there's no wave, eventually you get bored. There's nothing happening. You know, it's peaceful. You're in like a peace prison. You know, it's very comfortable, it's peaceful, but you're bored after a while. So what you need is you want a wave that you can surf. Now, you don't want a tsunami. You don't want to, you know, suddenly be the president of the United States that, you know, blows you away or whatever. You want a wave. So learning how to find the right size growth task for you at any given moment that you can kind of surf, that keeps you from boredom, that keeps you from being plowed under by a tsunami. That's a skill.
Mm. Yeah, wonderful. So kind of it's really also this art, finding out what is too much and what is not enough for my growth. Yeah,
Right,
beautiful.
right.
Mm. And when you sense kind of into the, I would say, the big community, humanity, does there anything stood out for you where you sense when I tune into this big community, I see this weak leg or something like that? Is
Uh-huh.
there such a thing for you?
Well, there's so many weak legs in the world now. You know, where do you start? It's more of like what pulls at your heart and what are your skills. Like, you know, right now, well, I can't because of the pandemic, but previously I've been working on going into prisons and teaching people meditation. I spent 2 days in prison many years ago. I got the feel for how unjust that system is. Prisons are really like ashrams, you know, you're sitting there. So I go in and I teach meditation because, you know, part of my skill is teaching quick ways to tap into peace. So, and I'm good at that. So that was something that I could do. So I tell people, you know, what pulls at you and what are your gifts that you can then offer into the world? Because everybody has a gift and the world has a lot of hurt. Find a way to use your gift in the world, and that will make you happier and it'll add light to a pretty dark place. So that's how I think of it. And but you can see right now that the world is suffering from incredible amounts of separateness. You know, everybody hates everybody else. You know, there's not a sense that we're one humanity. And we are one humanity. You don't have to hype that we're one humanity. We're all very similar, but that doesn't get a lot of airplay. So whenever possible, I try to share how we all want love, we all want peace, and we're all human, and that's a great gift.
Yeah, and this just brings up into my mind that one of my favorite teacher, he also kind of really very often invites us not to focus so much on the differences. Of course, there are many, but to focus on the sameness. And this is
Yeah.
just also what you brought. And I just notice just this only thing when I have a difficulty with a person or I'm living here with my partner and there is something, and then I just come back and remember, sweetheart, just connect to the sameness, you know, and then
Yeah.
the whole thing quietens down and you can maybe talk about something which you might have different but in another without that charge, yeah, when you come from sameness. So I appreciate you mentioning that and bringing this into our awareness, that this
Well,
not
we're, you know,
not having is
even
as a
yeah, good.
concept, you know. I just often hear people saying this we are one and oneness and unity, but I don't sense it really embodied and lived. It's more like a mental concept then.
Yeah. Well, you know, as I said, I like techniques that can be done in, say, under 10 seconds. So when I'm feeling separate from somebody, um, like for example, I'll use an extreme example. Um, as you know, we have a president who is a little unusual, we'll say, President Trump. I'm not a supporter. Um, and so, you know, I get triggered by him. And when I do, you know, creating a lost separateness there, I say, well, how is what he's doing like what I do? How am I like that? You know, so he'll exaggerate. Do I ever exaggerate? Yeah. Have I ever told the lie? Yeah. To make myself look better? Yeah. Have I ever been very defensive? Yes. I know what those are like. So we're not that separate. And he's an extreme example. So, you know, I use that tool. How is that like me? And that helps me to lessen my judgment, lessen my separateness, and soften my heart a little bit.
Lovely. And Jonathan, you mentioned that you have really so many quick exercises. And how did it come? Did you kind of collect them from your journey with different teachers and books, or did they come to you when you were in such states, or is it a combination of both? Or
A combination. I guess it really came down to it almost became like a hobby. I want to collect every great consciousness method on earth. So I'm going to talk to all the spiritual leaders from the Dalai Lama to Mother Teresa to Deepak Chopra. I'm going to collect them. I'm going to see what works for me and then disseminate them as best I can. But I'll give you one story that shows you how committed I am to finding a good technique. When I interviewed a lot of people on the Awareness Explorers podcast and previously, I saw that a lot of people would talk about gratitude as a technique for connecting with the sacred. So, you know, I didn't like the gratitude journal or things like that, you know, because it makes you separate from life. So I had a friend who came back from India and he seemed really happy. And I said, what happened there? He said, I learned this magical mantra that helps me to feel gratitude throughout my day. And I said, really? You know, can you give me that mantra? And he said, no, you have to get it from the guru directly. I go, okay, well, you've been to India. It's not an easy place to be at, but I travel 18,000 miles to go to India to meet this guru to get the mantra. You know, that's how committed I am. You know, I take a rickshaw for 3 hours. I wait in line for 5 hours to talk to the guru. Finally, I get a chance to talk to him. And I say, you know, I came all the way from America to get this mantra to help me feel gratitude in daily life. And in his Indian accent, he says, yes, my mantra is the most powerful mantra on earth. And he leans in to whisper it into my ear. And he says, whenever possible, repeat these words. The mantra I give you are the words, thank you. I look at him like, okay, yeah, no, tell me the real mantra. And he's not smiling. I go, that's it? I traveled 18,000 miles to get thank you? That's it? And he says, no, that's it is the mantra you have been using. And that makes you feel like you never have enough. My mantra is thank you, not that's it. That's it will take you nowhere. Well, I'm totally pissed off. So I look at him like I sneer at him. I go, well, thank you. And he says, thank you is not the mantra. You must say it from your heart many times a day. So when you eat good food, say thank you. Or when you see your child or a sunset or a pet, say thank you many times from your heart, and soon you will be filled with gratitude. Well, I was still pissed off, but I said thank you. And you know, I got into the cab to take me to my hotel, and the cab had air conditioning. So I said, oh, thank you. Because you know how India can be like, you know, ridiculously hot. Go to my hotel. I notice it has a Western style toilet, which I appreciate. I go, oh, thank you for this toilet. And then I open up my laptop. I realize I have this amazing machine that, does everything. Thank you from the laptop. I Skype my wife. I'm talking to my wife across the planet for free. That used to be impossible. And I'm thinking, thank you for Skype. I see my wife, thank you. And tears start rolling down my face. And she says, that must have been some mantra. And I said, you have no idea. It really works, So it's really a matter of finding what works and doing it repeatedly and tapping into what's already here. I mean, people are listening to your summit for free. Some of the best, information on the planet. But we need that little last quarter inch to feel the gratitude, to feel the amazement, the wonder of it all.
Yeah, thank you for this beautiful story. And I mean, I can relate a lot to it because I was often in India. And I just want to add a little piece because I guess it was last year when I had a period. There is a period in the summit where I spent almost every day 10 or 12 hours in front of the computer, and I was kind of quite stressed and my eyes were hurting and I was longing for being more out in nature, and I did all the thing. And then it happened to be that kind of, let's say, technical difficulties and disturbances and things didn't work really would happen quite a lot.
Yeah.
And then I was sitting down in my daily meditation, and I just tuned in and I asked really very honest and deep, what is going on? Why are there so many technical difficulties happening? And there
Yeah.
came just, you don't appreciate the technique. You just use it, you take it for granted. It's a bit you act on it as if it's your slaves. And then where tears were coming down my cheeks, and I thought, yes, that's right, I just use it, I never said thank you, I didn't appreciate it. And then I really had the sense, no, I need to shift it. And I
Mm-hmm.
shifted it. And when I came to the laptop, I kind of as a thank you for your cooperation. We are a team. First, I thought always I do the work, but I couldn't do the work. I can't edit videos. I can't put them here somewhere in. I need this computer. So I can relate a lot. And I can say also matter, not only people or animals, but also machines, computers, cars, whatever, senses when we appreciate this working together and saying thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wonderful. So, Jonathan, I'm curious to get a taste of your beautiful collection of work, and it's really up to you what you sense, what you have the most resonance and passion to put into this field of conscious evolution to support people in their process of expanding consciousness, of tapping more and more into that, I would say, that frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's yours.
Why don't I give people like 3 or 4 methods that can be done in a minute or so that give people different ways in, because different things are needed for different people. And if you have, in my Awareness Explorers podcast, we now have like 60 episodes. So we have over 150 methods we've given out, and some people say, oh man, that headless way you did, that just blew my head. And then another person will say, that didn't do anything for me, but your include method is just made my life totally different. And so you never know, but I like to give people a few different methods and they get to see what works for them, whether it be the thank you technique or how's that like me, or, but we'll do like 3 1-minute meditations now, and you'll get a sense of if any of them seem to really work for you. Okay?
Great.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for the first meditation, I call it the erasure technique. It's best if you close your eyes, if you can. Not necessary, but if you can. And then imagine you have a big eraser in your hand, and you're going to start erasing your feet. You're erasing your feet. If there's any tension there, just erase it out. Erasing your lower legs, just out of the material plane. Erase your upper legs. Let go of any tension and just allow them to be gone for a short while. Erasing your pelvic area, your stomach area, your chest area. Whichever arm doesn't have the eraser, you can erase that. Erase your upper chest and upper back, your neck. Now you might feel like you are located in your head, which is where we often think we are. But imagine you can start to erase your head now, your jaw, your cheek. What would it be like to even erase your forehead and the rest of your head? Somehow there's something still here. I call that something that would still be here, your awareness. In fact, you probably can't not be aware. Try to not be aware. You can't do it. It's always there. Awareness is always there. Sometimes thoughts block it or obscure you seeing it. So if that happens, erase some of those thoughts. And notice that there's just a stillness, an awareness that is left always in the background, that can notice thought, that can notice stillness, that can notice spaciousness. And now another method, you might imagine like a whiteboard in front of you with the words I am. And fill in the words I am with whether you're a man or a woman. And feel into your male or femaleness. And then erase the male or female and just go back to I am. And feel what that feels like. Now, what else occurs to you that you identify with? I am, put in your occupation. Feel into that self of you that feels like you are a writer or a mechanic or a teacher or whatever it is. Your identity with your occupation. And then erase that and go back to just I am, an awareness that I am, and let go into that ocean of awareness. And one last time, identify with anything else that you tend to identify with. Maybe how you feel. I'm depressed, or I'm at peace, or I'm busy. And feel into that identity. And then let go of that and erase that identity and just be an I am. Letting go into this present moment of awareness. And one last quick meditation. Become aware of the sensations of your body wherever you're seated. Become aware that you are a sensing instrument for feeling these sensations. Become aware of the sounds in the room and my voice. Include that. So you have sensations, you have sound. Whether your eyes are open or closed, you can include that you have images or sight. And there's one other thing to include, that you have an awareness, a background of awareness that allows the registering of all these sensations and sounds. You're in a field of awareness, a spacious field that registers all these sense impressions. And as you let go into that ocean or that field of awareness, you feel a peace, a stillness, an openness that you can rest in. Nothing you need to do, it's always there. And as you very, very slowly come back to the room you're in, and very, very slowly begin to open your eyes if they were closed, you can include the sights of the room while maintaining seeing and noticing the background of awareness, like you're seeing things for the first time, like you were just born. And everything is pretty amazing. All the colors, the forms, the shapes, and the vastness of awareness. Welcome back. You look a little blissed out, Puria.
I mean, I just followed your invitation and totally participated in it. And I mean, I have this two sensations. One is feeling very centered,
Uh-huh.
centered and calm and grounded and connected, but yet also very open, very um, permeable, very spacey, very airy in a way, and limitless. So it's a lovely combination of those two. And yeah, I also sense, or just imagining from this state going into any activity, it's a beautiful way, because I feel grounded and centered, and yet also open to receive insights, guidance, to include kind of a larger field. Yeah.
Yeah, trying to get those two wings of like the being and the doing part of us in balance. You know, when you just have doing, you know, you can get stressed out, you lose touch with, you know, what keeps us alive. And if you just have being, well, that's nice, but you're not necessarily getting anything done. So finding those two wings, like two wings of a plane. You know, if you have one wing in a plane that's very strong and one that's very small, that plane can go around in circles and crash. So trying to balance those two things is really, I think, a big part of our task in conscious evolution at this point.
Mhm. And Jonathan, would you kind of recommend, I mean, I will also provide your links and your podcast. Would you then suggest that people kind of pick some exercises where they feel kind of this is now good food for me, or they're helpful for me, and really kind of put it regularly into their daily yeah, doing also? Or what would you suggest? What is a good way to apply it?
Yeah, I think like being a scientist, you know, we have our laboratory and you're doing experiments. You might do an experiment for a week of doing what I just did, the include meditation. You know, you feel your sensations, you include eventually that you're aware of them. You know, try that, see if it works for you, or try a different type of meditation. And by trying stuff, you get to see what works and what doesn't. You know, it's like the hot and cold game you play as a kid. You know, you hide a pen and they tell you you're getting warmer or cooler. Well, I believe the universe is telling us, yeah, when you did this, that felt really good, that's warmer. Or when you're at a job that you don't like and it's boring, that's cooler. You know, try something else. So listening to yourself, trying stuff and doing experiments, I think is a way to move forward.
Mhm. And I just noticed that sometimes or let's say I'm a bit interested also in distinguish the levels in us from where I maybe have a yes or a no, because in my experience I sometimes can have from an egoistic perspective, oh no, that's not for me, or I don't have time, or that doesn't work, but maybe that would be the thing for me to
Mhm.
do. But then I can have on a deeper level maybe a resonance with something. And I would like you maybe to address that a bit, because yeah, this from, let's say, from which level do I, or in which level do I check in, and how do I check in so that I get an answer what's really now for me to do, so that it's not avoiding something, or I guess you get the point what I try to.
Yeah, you asked really great questions. Well, so on one sense, there's doing what feels good and you like. On the other sense, there's doing what is difficult for you and is a stretch. And I think both can be there in your life. I always choose one of each, you know? It's kind of like, you know, I like dessert. I have a salad, you know? That satisfies both parts of me. So sometimes I'll ask a friend, a trusted friend, what do you think would be good for me as a stretch? And they always hit on the nail on the head, because when they say it, they go, oh yeah, you're right. Damn, I have to do that. You know, like I can tell it's not something I would naturally come up with. So having a trusted friend or teacher can be useful that way, because it can be hard to work on our weak leg or to know even what it is. But when I asked 10 people what they thought I should work on, my 10 closest friends, 9 of them said the same thing. And I thought, that's probably right.
Thank you. I like that. Great. So is there anything left when you now tune into our audience, people from all over the globe interested in their evolution and in consciousness and bringing that forward and being in this resonant field where we know about our sameness, where we really want to bring this peace and connectedness into our personal life, into our relationships, into our work, and also kind of be open and receptive to attract resources and people and being in the right field. I know I mentioned quite a lot, but I guess many people are in that. In what comes up for you, what you would like to share to the audience as a closing?
Mhm. Well, I'll share a short story. I know, a big fan of Ramana Maharshi, and he had a student named Punjaji that was a teacher. And in my first interaction with him, he did something that made a big impression on me. I walked in and he told me to sit in front of him. So it's like right here. And he looked at me and he said, "Who are you?" And I didn't know that that was a technique. So I said, I'm Jonathan Robinson. I'm a writer from America. And he and everybody started laughing. And he said, "No, who are you really?" And I said, "Well, I'm a psychotherapist." And, you know, he's going like, "Nah." I kept on saying like career stuff or other stuff. And, you know, he kept saying no. And then I looked in his eyes, and he had very shiny eyes. And as I looked in his eyes, a wave of love hit me. And I just started weeping with this amazing amount of love and openness I felt. And as I'm kind of weeping in his lap, he taps me on the head and he says, "This love is who you are. And your job in life is to get back to it." So that's your job. You're not a writer, you're not a therapist, you're not a man, you're a woman, or whatever you think you are. You are pure, open love. And that's your full-time job while given on earth. And if we thought of ourselves that way, like this is our job. Yeah, you got to make money, you got to take out the trash, but we have a full-time job given to us by creation, and that is to get back to the garden. And if you look at it that way, and you see that that's your task, then things become clear.
Oh, thank you so much for this touching story. I'm really touched. I'm very open and soft, and my heart is open. And yeah, the only thing what also came to me, it's kind of remembering that this is our default mode.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe just taking care and being kind of aware and curious what covers this default mode.
Yeah, curiosity, it may have killed the cat, but it awakens human beings. You know, what's in the way of our natural state? In this moment, that's a great wake up. That's a great technique. What's in the way of me being in a relaxed, peaceful state in this moment? You can go very far just with that one technique. And can I let it go?
Lovely.
I'm going to write that one down myself.
Do yes. Thank you so much. Oh, wow, Jonathan, I'm so impressed what kind of richness you really embody and the humor you have and the way how you can describe those things. So I'm so glad having you in this summit. You bring really a very special piece into this very colorful gathering. So I'm happy that that life and the field brought us together.
Me too, curious. And thanks for the work you're doing. It's important work.
Mm. And thank you for everyone watching this recording and being with us in the space. I hope that you were able to open your system, to start to experiment, to be inspired. And I hope that you're also kind of inspired to bring that more into your life and to benefit just from what Jonathan shared with us in this little techniques. And maybe when you also are touched like I was, maybe you come up with just your unique, simple way of embodying this love more, moving, vibrating in this default mode and bringing it into life. And I guess that's a very big contribution in what we need right now. Thank you.